Hello there and welcome back to Arctic Retro, and this is the first episode of a series I will make where I will take you through my journey with investigating and restoring this Apple IIe computer. So this year's vacation is now over and I'm ready to start working on some machines again, and I had a poll on patreon.com, and the ones that replied, they wanted me to take a look at this Apple IIe computer. If you saw my mail and donations video for August, you actually saw when I unboxed this one, and this was a really good find. I purchased it here in Norway, and I paid around 250 euros for it, and I think that was kind of cheap. It also came with a monitor, which I haven't set up yet. So what I'm gonna do with this machine, I haven't really laid out a plan, but I think there will be several episodes depending on how much there is to do. So we'll see about that. I'm gonna do a full cleaning and the regular stuff, and try to learn more about this computer, because I'm pretty new to Apple II. I haven't had one ever. The only Apple computers I had was a modern MacBook Air, and I also got a Macintosh Classic. If you need to have produced some circuit boards or extensions cards for your old computers, then head over to PCBWay and get an instant quote on some PCBs right away. PCBWay is my favorite PCB manufacturer, and they offer 5 PCBs for as low as $5. Besides standard PCB, they also provide services for advanced PCB, rigid and flex PCBs, and also PCB assembly. If you are in need of already made PCB designs, go to their shared project site, and there you can find a lot of already made PCB designs. So head over to PCBWay.com and get your PCBs right away. Alright, let's take the first look at this machine, and it has 2 floppy drives, drive 1 and 2. I don't know if they are different, I'll check that out, but also came with very nice manuals, and I actually found myself searching for something, Googling, and then I just thought, well, maybe I should check the manual, and there it was. The manuals look very nice, they look almost unused. DOS Programmer's Manual, DOS User's Manual, 80-column text card manual. This one, Duo Disk, that's for something else. Supplement, the Homeword, the personal word processor story. Don't know what that is. Apple II Business Graphics. Seems interesting. And extended 80-column text card supplement. So that's great to have. Of course, I have seen several videos about the Apple IIe in the past, and I wasn't really aware that it was that big. It can't almost fit on my bench here. So let's take a look on the back side. And it's pretty heavy, at least with the floppy drives on top. Here's the back side, and here's a warning label: only connect this cable to the Disk 2 interface card, and the serial number is exactly the same on both discs. Power input, power switch, video output. I just connected it now to my TV via SCART adapter, and seems to be a serial connection, and also has parallel cable here, so for printers, I guess, and things like that. The case is looking very nice, a little bit dirty, of course. Keyboard is maybe a little bit yeah, dodgy, I don't know, I have to test. And as you can see, it's pretty yellowed compared to the color of the floppy disks drives. I did test the machine briefly when I unpacked it, and it seems to be working, but I'm gonna do a brief test now. I don't want to connect it for very long to the power, because I think there's rifa capacitors inside the power supply, and they might blow up. Beeps and tries to boot from disk drive. Apple IIe. So it is working, and I'm now gonna run the diagnostics, which I think is Apple and control and reset. Yep. This should do some testing and then print out the kernel OK. And it does, so yeah, seems to be working at least this far. Besides the inspection of the machine and some cleaning, I'm gonna take a look at the power supply right away and replace or remove rifa capacitors. And here it's very noticeable, the color difference. Up here where the monitor has stood is not that yellowed, so let's open up the case and see how it is inside. Alright, 4 expansion cards. The machine looks good inside, no damages, and the 4 cards. This one is, it says Epson unit, some numbers, probably a printer card, and this is the 80 column and 64K memory expansion card, parallel interface, and disk 2 interface card. The motherboard looks okay. I'm using my flashlight because it's a little bit dark from this angle, and yeah, looks a bit dusty and yeah, some dirt, but I can't see anything nasty going on here, so it's probably good. Alrighty, what I'm gonna do now is to remove the cards and open the machine. I mean, disassembling it and taking out all the components, and then I'm gonna start the cleaning of the case and some retrobrighting action. I never had an Apple IIe, as I said, because they were not that popular in Norway, I think, back in the day. Most kids had Commodore machines or Atari, but I never heard about anyone had an Apple IIe. But it seems kind of extensible. It has all these slots, so that seems to be an advantage. However, I don't like this thing with ribbon cables going through the machine and hooked to the card. It's a little bit flimsy, I guess. Try to remove the cables first. Oh, they're pretty stuck. Been there for decades. So this seems to be a 16-bit slot, is it? No, they're all the same. Of course, no 16-bit slot. This is an 8-bit machine. Come on. Here's the backside, and there's a bunch of screws. I'm gonna remove those now, and here's the label with the model number and serial number, and assembled in Ireland. That was the screws around the edge. I'm not sure if that's enough to take it out. Maybe it is. Yeah. I can see now that the keyboard needs a good cleaning. that comes later. I'm gonna just remove it now from the case. The power supply is secured by 4 screws under. Now then, that is loose. And here I can see how dirty it is, except for this area. Oops. So I'm gonna remove the motherboard as well, just to be able to clean it very well. The motherboard has 4 screws and also these plastic tabs or clips. There's one. Got you. Just spraying a little bit of IPA on this. The dust is flying around. Time to clean the case, and this case is too big for my sink, so it has to go in the bathtub. Now it's getting a bubble bath, and for like 5 minutes or so. This machine is getting the full spa treatment. Now it's finished with a bubble bath and is drying, and next it's gonna get a sun bath. And today it's a very nice day for a sun bath here in Bodø. It's around 22 degrees Celsius. I've had success with retrobrighting by just using sunlight before, and I'm gonna do it now as well. Takes a bit of time, but a couple of days we will see results. While the case is cooking outside, I'm gonna take a look at the power supply. However, there's a slight problem. It says under no circumstances is this case to be opened. Well, I think I'll try my luck anyway. So this is a completely sealed power supply, so there shouldn't be any dust or anything inside. No fans or anything, so I guess it runs cool. There's 4 screws on each side. And as expected, this power supply looks completely clean inside. No budging capacitors or anything, so looks really nice. And there's the 2 rifa filter caps. And actually I can see a little crack in the plastic on this one at least. What I'm gonna do now is to measure the voltages from this power supply, and it says a warning here, hazard of electric shock heatsink is live, so better be careful there. Alright, let's see what we got. I'm not really sure what the output of this is. I could look it up, but I'm gonna measure. I think the blacks are the ground, so let's see. 5.3 volts DC, and then we have minus 12 or 11.6, minus 5, and there we have plus 12 volts. So this seems to be quite alright. 5.3 without the load, so I think that's okay. The keyboard is quite dirty, as you can see. Blackness on almost every keycap, and I'm gonna remove them now just to clean them real good. Luckily they are not that hard to remove. You just pull them straight out. The spacebar has this sticker on. I'm gonna remove that. Well, seems to be removing some color, but that's actually the yellowing of the keycaps, and now this is the original color showing up. So these keys also need some retrobrighting. And how is this mechanism then? Push. Yeah, that's it. And one spring there. So then I'm gonna vacuum this part of the keyboard. But first a little hot soapy bath for these keycaps. I have cleaned the keyboard inside and it turned out really nice, and also I sprayed electronic cleaner in all the keys, and I'm not going to do anything else with this. I could take off the PCB, but I'm not going to do that. I went down to the garage and blew off all the dust of the motherboard, and now I'm just going to clean it with some IPA and these Q-tips. See if it's any dirty. Yeah, a little bit, always. Alright, now everything looks nice and shiny, and the backside of the board is perfect. I didn't do anything there. I'm just gonna spray some electronic cleaner into the sockets. And also in the different contacts. That's it for the motherboard. Let's take a closer look at it. I don't know too much about the architecture of this machine, but here you can see the Apple computer, Apple IIe PAL 1982. So this is a PAL machine, a European. What kind of revision this board is, I'm not sure. Probably it says someplace. And the different chips on the board is labeled very nice. This is the CPU, the 6502, and MMU, and yeah, IOU. So this is a nice motherboard, a nice layout. I know Apple reduced the number of chips it had on the Apple II original motherboards a lot with their own custom chips. One thing I noticed that's a little bit special about this motherboard, there's not a single electrolyte capacitor on it. I was thinking maybe I should do some recapping, but seems like I don't have to do that. These are the expansion cards, and they look really nice and not dirty or anything, so I'm just gonna swipe them off a little bit with some IPA. So this is a Epson card, printer card, parallel interface, the 80 column and 64K memory expansion, and this is the disk interface cards for 2 drives. Just cleaning the edges with some contact cleaner. Day 3. I have retrobrighted the keycaps, and for those I actually used some hydrogen peroxide cream, and they all turned out quite nice. All the greenish or yellowy color is gone, but the space key, that's another story. It didn't handle the peroxide that great, it seems, so Clearly that's another type of plastic. And where the label was, it didn't take at all, but there's some light areas here, so this was not a success, and this shows how these plastics are different and you can get a varying result. Anyway, that's not a big problem. I think I'll try just to sand it down, at least the top part of the key, and see if it improves. I have a sanding paper pad here. I'll try with this and see how it goes. And it's a little coarse, but I'm gonna get the finer grain sanding paper later. Yeah, that seems to do the trick. The original color came back. Alright, that looks great if I only clean off the dust. I have cleaned it now and it looks much better. I don't think I need to do anything. Of course, the texture is a little bit different than it was after sanding it, but I don't think anyone would notice it. So now I can start rebuilding the keyboard. I arranged all the keys, and now let's do a little montage. Space key was a little difficult. I'm probably doing it the wrong way, but not really sure how the correct method is. Alright, that's it. Keyboard is okay. Alrighty, the case was out in the sun for a couple of days, but then came the rain, so I took it in, obviously, and it looks a lot better. Most of the yellowing is gone, I think. I can't see much difference anymore. Maybe a little bit darker here compared to the top where the monitor has stood, but I think this is a very nice result. So I'm gonna start assembling the machine again now. As I mentioned before, I wanted to replace the rifa capacitor, that's suppression caps on the power supply, and I didn't have the exact values, but here I got them. These are X2 film capacitors and the same values. It's these two capacitors, this 0.47 microfarad, this big one, and the 0.1 microfarad. These are high voltage caps, and they are in a plastic housing but with the paper inside. And I can see cracks on both actually, and while they might hold for a couple of more years, they can suddenly explode, and then you have a lot of smoke and toxic gases in your room. So to get them out, I obviously need to take out the PCB. It has a couple of screws with the nuts on top. So now it is loose. As you can hear, I have fired up the desoldering station, and yeah, I'm using it to desolder the caps. That was the first, and then the big one. Let's see if they came loose. All right, the big one fell right out, and this one, yeah, easy peasy. And here you really can see the cracking in the plastic. Time to replace those. Then in with the new ones, and these are not polarized, they are on the AC input, so there seems to be different holes here depending on the width of the capacitor, so I think I just have to open up some of the other holes because the pin width is not the same, so yeah, but that's actually a good thing. There are alternatives, so yeah. All right, the holes are opened. So now it should fit perfectly in these holes and these. Excellent. Just need a little something to hold the cap in place. Little bit of flux. These are thick and wide traces, so I think I'll crank up the temperature a little bit. 430 degrees. It's a little awkward angle I'm sitting here, so but I'll do it, and I'll just fill the other hole. Come on. There you go. Damn. The cap fell down some millimeters, so I'm just gonna drag it up again. All right, that looks good, so I think we're done. All right, just assemble the power supply and then we are ready to test. And as I mentioned, I'm not gonna do any recapping of the electrolytes. They all look fine, but I'm not gonna recap them this time. Alrighty, I have attached the power supply now, and now I can test. I took out the floppy disk card so that it won't boot from the floppy or try to boot, so I'm turning it on. There is light and there is the Apple II. So now it went straight into basic. Let's see if I can write a little program. Print. Go to 10. All right, nice program. How do you abort it? Not escape. Control escape. Control C, yeah, that works. Nice. The Apple IIe is now cleaned and works perfectly, it seems. I have now inserted the floppy disk card, and now it just hangs on Apple II, so I was a little bit confused how to actually get into BASIC when you have a floppy disk drive connected, but it is actually control reset and then release the reset. So now it is back into Apple BASIC. And again, let's try and do the diagnostics. Yeah, seems to be working fine. Kernel OK soon. Yep, kernel OK. Time to attach the case. All right, this machine looks great now. Now, what's the fun in having an Apple IIe and just the BASIC? I need some software for this machine, a couple of games, and yeah, there's an empty floppy disk, but I don't have a single floppy for this machine, so I need to figure out a way to transfer some disk images to floppy. Alright, I think that was it for this video. I did the initial maintenance and yeah, checking out this machine, and next episode I'm gonna do some software exploration and try to run some games and clean out the two floppy drives and see if they need some tender love. As always, I just want to say thank you to all my subscribers, and a special thank you to my Patreons over at patreon.com. If you want to support me, just hit the subscribe button and the like button, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.